Education Minister Desmond Bannister refuting claims of a teacher shortage in public schools. Bannister says while additional teachers are needed, it is only in specialty subject areas. Fern Carey has this story.
Education officials say there's no reason to be concerned about reports of teacher shortages in public schools. In fact, Education Minister Desmond Bannister says the claims are untrue.
What we have is a bunch of rumors that continue to fly around about teacher shortages. We have a whole new group of teachers who have been assigned to the schools. We have a very, very small number of teacher needs. But because somebody may have gone to a particular school and they may have had 70 student teachers one year, they come back and they have 65, they think that there's a shortage.
Although satisfied with the student-teacher ratio at public schools nationwide, the Education Minister noted that additional teachers are needed, but only in specialty subjects.
And as a country, we have not been producing those specialist teachers. And so generally, I have to go out of the country to find it. And the message I've been sending for a year and a half now as Minister of Education is that we have to start producing teachers in specialist areas, in agriculture, in math, in the sciences. And that's where we really need teachers.
Another challenge is that many teachers shun working in the Family Islands, which they consider hardship areas. However, the Education Minister gave this warning.
Well, we're not going to hire you if that's the case. We want our children in the Family Island to have the same quality of education that children in New Providence, Grand Bahama, Abaco, any other of these other islands have. And I'm going to ensure that Auckland, Crooked Island, Mayaguana, San Salvador, all of those islands have quality teachers in the classroom.
And despite a hurricane 1 week before the new school term opened and challenges at a number of schools, Bannister says teachers are doing their best to ensure the students receive a quality education.
I want to commend all those teachers who went back to the classroom like they ought to have, and who have done the positive things in making sure that education commenced and that all the students who ought to have their attention have been getting their attention.
Fern Carey, ZNS News.
An opposition member of parliament says parents who applied for uniform assistance for their children and have not received them are forced to leave their kids at home instead of sending them to school. Former Social Services Minister Melanie Griffin made the claim but could not say how many children are affected.
There are absolutely too many complaints from parents and guardians of children who are being kept out of school because they have no uniforms. My advice is that for the most part, assistance is being held up because assessments have not been completed. In other cases, the assistance is being flat out denied, even in cases which seem legitimate.
Meantime, the Department of Social Services responded saying they are working to process the paperwork and have checks ready, but the process can be a bit tedious as many of these individuals come at the last hour for help. It appears personnel at the department might also be contributing to the shortage. However, Director of Education Lionel Sands says this should not be a reason for students to stay home. He explains why in this report by Clint Watson.
Absolutely not.
Director of Education Lionel Sands is adamant that the only reason a child should be at home and not in school is if they're ill.
I'm not aware that there are children staying home from school because they do not have uniforms. The absence of uniform is not an excuse or a reason for a child to be kept away from school.
So to all those parents who may have a challenge, what's the process to getting assistance?
The parents should go to the school and explain to the school's guidance counselors the challenges that they're faced with. We do know that the Ministry of Social Service provides assistance, but in addition to that, the Department of Education has any number of anonymous donors who we rely upon to provide assistance for us in times like these.
Sands confirms that in the past they've had cases where they've had to step in and provide assistance, and they do so in such a way as to avoid embarrassment to anyone.
We would have been told of some children who are having challenges, and the Department of Education, through its anonymous donors program, provided uniforms for those children, and no one knew about it. And what it does is it does not give parents the notion that, you know what, this should make me feel embarrassed, because we understand that there are parents who are going through some challenging economic times, And so any help that they can get from us, we will provide without making them feel less than who they ought to be.
Meantime, the Department of Social Services says they have a team of individuals whose main focus at this time is getting uniforms out for those students. Clint Watson, ZNS News.
Officials of the New Providence Road Improvement Project maintain that the project is on schedule to be completed early next year, as they gave an update today. Carla Palmer has this.
Traffic officials had anticipated the challenges accompanying the reopening of schools this new academic year. Challenges they knew would be fueled by the ongoing New Providence Road Improvement Project and the thousands of registered vehicles here in the capital on seemingly too few roads.
The important thing for the motoring public is when you are traveling or going into areas where we have diversions, it is important to pay attention. And what we have experienced over the past several days is persons commuting having to apply makeup, the use of telephones, persons having breakfast, and persons simply not paying attention. That has slowed the traffic tremendously.
Nevertheless, Assistant Superintendent of Police Dennis Stirrup says it's not for the lack of trying by police, but circumstances dictate they are not in the position to do much more than simply excuse many of the infractions.
We want to issue citations, and we really want to warn persons, but the truth of the matter is 2 minutes, 30 seconds. 30 seconds or a minute, now if an officer move away just for 30 seconds, that is a rippling effect, and you'll find gridlocks occurring all over the place. To be quite honest, the traffic section of the Royal Bahamas Police Force, we are stretched, and where we see it, where it becomes atrocious, we do some things. Persons riding without seat belts and having kids moving around and not being secured in seats. The officers, they just hop on the bike and issue whatever citation needed to be issued. But there's much more that we could do, but considering the circumstances, we try to do our best with respect to that.
Even with assistance from other divisions within the force, ASP Stirrup explains further the dilemma faced by his team.
Presently, I think we have about 30 cyclists. Don't forget, we also have to make provisions for vacation. Persons, they're sick at times, off days, all the rest of that stuff.
Meanwhile, police are advising the motoring public to remain vigilant, pay attention to officers directing traffic, be mindful of pedestrians, and to be courteous to each other at all times. Carla Palmer, ZNS News.
BEC, the cause of an emergency road closure on Market Street from Wolf Road to Andres Avenue tonight. It is to allow the corporation to perform work on a high-tension power main in the vicinity of Father Cannon Lane. It is anticipated that these works will be completed throughout tonight and the area reopened for vehicular traffic tomorrow.